remember him dying, yes, but I didn't have anything to do with him while I was there, fortunately. But I remember being told when we came home one day that Lincoln had passed away.
Do you remember who took his place when he died?
It was Chief Petty Officer of the Perth, Cunningham.
Cunningham,
Jock
right.
Cunningham.
Jock Cunningham.
He was the most senior medical officer, I suppose you'd call him, at that stage, in our camp.
Yes.
And we had him all the time then for the rest of our time in that camp. When we moved from May to 100 kilo camp from May, and we're in the 100 kilo camp in October when the line was finished. And after that we were engaged in doing a little bit of rock work, making ballast for the railway line, apart from the timber work that we were doing, cutting down trees. We got involved drilling holes in rocks and breaking it up into small sort of rocks for the ballast on the rail. That was all that we did in the 100 kilo camp that I was involved with, and then around about January of 1944, would have been, we moved into the 105 kilo camp. And we were there for about a month.
What do you think of a 105 kilo camp?
It wasn't a bad camp really. There was a lot of Perth survivors in that too, that had gone up there in Williams Force. So it was still called Williams Force. I think there were main ones in that camp.
So who was the doctor in that camp when you got in there?
Oh, I don't remember.
You don't remember a Dutch doctor by the name of Hecking at any time?
No.
What about Rolly Richards? Did you ever close
I
to
never
him?
came across Rolly Richards. He could have been in that camp, I don't know.
Okay.
But I was fortunate. I never had much to do with doctors, fortunately.
Yeah.
But from there, from the 105 kilo camp, we were transported around about February down to Tamarkan in Thailand.
Yep.
And I was there till about April.
Yes.
On April the 1st, I moved out of Tamarkan camp, known as the Japan Party. And from Tamarkan, we were in train from Tamarkan, eventually to Saigon, through Phnom Penh.
Yes.
In Cambodia.
Yes.
And from Phnom Penh, we went by river craft down the river to Saigon. And we were in Saigon, which was very close to the harbour in Saigon. All the go-downs and that were just over the road, more or less, from where we were camped. And we were there for 3 months. And then, because they couldn't get us out to Japan from Saigon because of the submarine activity, we got entrained all the way back up the river to Phnom Penh, and then from Phnom Penh through Ban Pong on the border of Thailand and Malaya, down Malaya to Singapore. And we got to Singapore on 4th of July, I think it was, in Singapore.
44.
And I stayed in River Valley Camp at Singapore for the next 5 months until I eventually there was one party left before me to go to Japan, and they were torpedoed on their way when we lost quite a few prisoners who were all on the Raikuku Maru or whatever it was called.
Can I just ask you, what Kumi were you in?
I think I was either on 40 or 41 Kumi.
So who were did you ever come across a doctor by the name of Chambers or Chalmers?
No, I didn't know. He could have been there, but I didn't know any of the doctors by name. After spending 5 months in River Valley Camp, I was the second group to head for Japan. And it wasn't until Boxing Day 1944 that I was on the Awa Maru in Singapore Harbour with about 600 prisoners on our way to Japan. We had an uneventful trip on the Awa Maru to Japan, although it was a very careful trip. We went all the way up the coast. We were never out of sight of land, I don't think. All the way we went up there. because of their fear of torpedoes, submarines. Anyway, we eventually got to Moji in the island of Kyushu on the 6th or 7th of January 1945. And from there we spent a day getting sorted out by the Japs on Moji Harbour after we left the ship. They made us have a haircut before we left the ship. I think they gave us a little feed of rice, and they eventually put us on a train, about 100 Perth survivors, about 20 Perth, about 12 Perth survivors and about 50 or 60 soldiers and 20 or 30 Dutch were on our train, and we took off just after, well, it was nightfall anyway. We pulled the blinds down on the train, it was snowing, bitterly cold. We didn't know where we were, but anyway, we eventually ended up at a little town which eventually I became known as Lysuka. And from there we had to walk from the station into the camp, which was known as Camp 22 in the Fukuoka precinct on the island of Kyushu. And the next morning, after this sumptuous feed that we got when we arrived there, consisting of a beautiful hot bowl of rice and a beautiful hot bowl of soup and a nice cup of Herzat tea, and our accommodation was consisted of a tent or a room, and each bedding place consisted of a little mattress, a couple of blankets, light blankets, a sheet, pillow and pillow slips, and a little packet of cigarettes on the top. So we thought we were in heaven. Anyway, the next morning when we got wakened up, we were told we were going to work down the mine, and they duly marched us down to the mine from this camp, which was about a mile away, I suppose, from the camp to the pit head. At the pit head they fitted us out with a cap with a lamp on it and a battery belt and a belt around our waist. And we then had to walk down to our work position down in the mine, which I suppose after walking for 20 minutes in a downhill motion we probably might have been 1,000 feet underground. I really don't know. It would have been about that. And we were shown what we had to do down the mine. And we worked there on pneumatic drills, drilling holes into the face. The Japs would put the gelignite in and blow it. We'd have to shovel what was blown up back onto trucks that were either behind us, or if not onto another group who were further behind, put in onto the trucks. Trucks were then connected up to a main line which were eventually hauled up. We weren't engaged in that sort of activity. But working down the mine was quite frightening as far as I was concerned, and very cold, very wet. So you had to work to try and keep warm. And you took a bento box down, which was known as a bento box, little, about the size of a normal little cigar box. Had two compartments in it, one containing a bit of rice and maybe, if you're lucky, a bit of vegetable. And that's what you ate for your meal down the mine. You went back to camp for your evening meal, and when you got back to camp there was a big bath area, which was a big concrete tank, I suppose, about 10 foot long, divided into two sections, hot water in it all the time, and about 2 feet deep. And into that you could climb, you could douse yourself with water on the outside, and then climb into and warm yourself on the warm water. How it was warmed up, I think it must have been some reticulation from the mine, somehow or other. But there was always warm water in this. And you'd have your meal there at night and go, but after the first day, having all that sumptuous accommodation for us, it had all gone by the time we got back to camp. And we never had it again. We lost our blanket, we lost our mattress, and all we were left was a little, I think we had a little blanket and left, that was all, sleeping on this Japanese seagrass sort of soft
tatami mat.
So